Good morning and welcome. Welcome to Newport Beach. Wake Up Newport this morning. I'm Alberto Sandoval, Assistant Vice Chancellor for Community and Government Relations at UC Irvine. If we could take our seats, people are. I'd be a horrible professor. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out in this beautiful Newport Beach morning. We've got a wonderful speaker, a dedicated public servant to speak to us this morning. But before that, we've got another public servant who is still serving us, and Steve Rosansky.
Thank you. Thank you. I guess are we using this? Yeah, I guess we are. Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve Rosansky, President and CEO of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce. It's great to see a full room here. I'm glad I asked them to put out a few extra seats this morning. As we traditionally like to do at the beginning of the Wake Up Newport meeting, we have some dignitaries here we'd like to introduce, or I'd like to introduce anyway. So first off, I'll start with Councilwoman Robin Grant. We got former Mayor Keith Curry's with us today. Keith, somewhere. Our city manager's with us, Grace Leung. And our assistant city manager, Tara Finnegan, is with her, next to her. Hey, Tara. Little known story, I like to tell it every so often. When I was the mayor and I had an office at the old City Hall building over in West Newport, Tara was hired. And we had no office space in City Hall. So I had to give up my mayor's office so she could have an office in City Hall, which wasn't much more than a closet, realistically. But she stuck with it, and now she's our assistant city manager. John Langford with the Planning Commission is here. John. Paul Watkins, chair of the Library Board of Trustees. Had a big, if you've noticed the construction out there, a lot of that's Paul's fault because he pushed for our new library lecture hall, which is being constructed out there. They're just starting. Hopefully in 2 years, we'll be having this meeting over in that building. But thank you, Paul, for your hard work and all the people who pushed for it. I mean, I know Robin did. She's actually my sister. I was thinking my sister did. Robin Grant's my sister. But yeah, it's a great thing that they're doing. So we're going to be minorly inconvenienced. And I'm thinking about just moving the whole meeting up to the community room. I reserve that for maybe the next 2 years so we don't have to deal with the parking situation. But thank you again, Paul, for your efforts. Howard Herzog and Brian Moore are both with the Civil Service Board. They're here this morning. We've got Pierce Swan, Irvine Ranch Water District. Good to see you here. Kristen Volandi, she's the district director for Diane Dixon's office. Where are you, Kristen? Back there. Diane had a big victory on Tuesday night, I think, right? What percentage did she win by? Or over 60. Wow, over 60%. That's great. She must be doing a good job. Evan Planto, the commander of the American Legion Post, is here. I want to personally thank Evan and his whole group over there. We had probably one of the best mixers we've had in 11 years. I've been chamber president at the American Legion Post a couple weeks ago. We had 125 members there. They had 100, so 225 people. We had a great time, great food, and the least expensive drinks, cover your ears, Decca, least expensive drinks in the harbor. So thank you, Evan. Yeah. Who else do we have? Nancy Scarborough is here this morning. She's running for Newport Beach City Council in November. She's also on the finance committee of the city, so I should recognize that. And my boss is here. Where's Andy Smith? Right over there. Welcome, Andy. So I hopefully got everybody. I know there's a lot of people this morning. I do want to recognize the DECA Club is here this morning. We got probably like 20 at least DECA students. I think they're in a big competition right about now. Are you guys competing? There's some kind of national competition supposed to happen now. Today? Wow. No, this weekend. Great. All right. Good luck. Bring home the gold. Or whatever they bring, trophy, whatever it is. Okay, let's get moving here. Taylor, come on up. Taylor Jones is with Hogue Digital. They're our sponsor this morning. They sponsored our breakfast, so she's got a couple words to say about Hogue Digital.
Wow, thank you. Quite the welcome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Taylor Jones. As Steve said, I work for Hogue. I lead digital strategy and operations for Hogue. So we're constantly trying to figure out how to improve access to care across Hogue, how to bring access to care to even more patients. My team specifically works on developing new technology, digital technologies for delivering care, improving patient outcomes. And so Hogue Compass specifically, we're a virtual primary care platform. We offer same-day, next-day appointments with your doctor. We also have an office right down the street. And we've kind of pivoted into this preventative wellness-focused approach to healthcare. So looking at you comprehensively through genetic testing, expanded lab testing, and helping get you on a path to wellness and feeling your best and living the longest. So we have a team of health coaches, doctors, nurse practitioners on our team who look at you, look at your data, your lab data, and help get you on a good nutrition plan, exercise plan, help coach you along the way and get you to achieve your goals. So if you want to learn more, I'll be in the back after this. Enjoy, thank you.
We're really fortunate to live here in Orange County now with not just Hogue, but all of the major hospital providers providing just unbelievable state-of-the-art service. So thank you for sponsoring our breakfast this morning. Thanks for everything that Hogue does for our community. So that's it. We're going to move on. Alberto's going to introduce the mayor, who I had the pleasure of hearing speak last week. You're fortunate. Everybody out there paid $150 to $200 a head to go see him last week. You guys are here for free, and we've got great food too. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say, although I don't know, I might have heard it all before, probably heard it, but I'll listen again because it's a lot of information, you got to absorb it. So, Alberto.
All right. Well, he is a wonderful public servant, but I count him as a friend because he's just a wonderful person, family man. Mayor Will O'Neill was elected to the Newport Beach City Council in November 2016 and re-elected in November 2020. He served as mayor in 2020, which he initially designated as the Year of the Volunteer as a way to recognize the many people improving our community and surrounding areas using their time and talents. He is currently serving in a second term on the City Council, and second term as mayor, having been re-elected to the City Council in 2020 by more votes than any other candidate in Newport Beach history, even more than Steve, right?
Not more than my sister,
though. He graduated from Stanford University, where he lettered on the track and field team. He then graduated from UC Hastings College of Law, where he later served as the president of the UC Hastings Board of Governors in the 2016-17 term. His wife, Jenny, a former elementary school teacher, they met at the Stanford USC football game in '07 and have two lovely, wonderful children who will hopefully understand someday how blessed they are to be raised in Newport. Please welcome Mayor O'Neill.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you so much. Let's see if I can get this thing to open at some point. So this is the good news is that the state of the city has not actually changed between Thursday and today. So for those of you who are here, who were there on Thursday, you're going to hear something a little similar, although I've promised that I'm going to make it worth your waking up and being here today. So I'll be covering a few things that I didn't cover on Thursday. So, and then also I'll leave time at the end for Q&A, which frankly is my favorite part anyway. And so we'll be able to talk about what you'd like to talk about. So a couple things. One of them is I started my speech on Thursday with the same quote that I'm going to start with today, which is George Will. So George Will, I think a lot of you have read his political commentary. But one of the things George Will loves to talk about also is baseball. And given that spring training is happening right now, there's a great quote that I particularly enjoy where he says that a senior umpire who does a lot of postseason work can earn maybe half as much as a mediocre utility infielder. The infielder's mediocrity is apparent. Umpires aspire for unnoticed excellence. I love the phrase unnoticed excellence. I think that more often than not really defines a good city council. And I'm really fortunate right now to be serving with a really good city council. So I want to start off by just thanking my fellow council members We've got Mayor Pro Tem Joe Stapleton, former council members and former mayors Brad Avery and Noah Blom, and then council members Robin Grant, Lauren Kleiman, and Eric Wigan. I want to start by thanking them for giving me the opportunity to be mayor this year. And I actually would like to just point out yet again, this is a great picture of all of the different personalities that we have on city council right now. And I particularly enjoy, so we've got Robin here. I love that Robin is digging dirt in heels. That's amazing. That's hard. That's hard to do. It's hard to do. I will point out real quickly 2 problems. One of them is that Joe is not wearing a tie, which I've never seen before. And then Noah's wearing shoes. They should be flip-flops. So, but we had a lot of fun. I really do enjoy serving with this council, so I do thank them again for this opportunity. And then it's probably worth noting, the last time I was actually standing here giving this State of the City address was during 2020. This was actually one of my last speeches I was actually able to give in person that year. And so a few things I want to talk about real quickly that I didn't mention. So one thing, by the way, it's really important to remember that being on council is never a game, but if it is, you win. This was actually last year, Noah Blom and I did a Make-A-Wish competition where we did a mac and cheese eating contest. I will tell you, don't ever enter a mac and cheese eating contest. It's disgusting. But we have a lot of, like I said, we have a lot of fun. So anyway, so during 2020, so we had a lot going on that year. And there's a lot of ability to kind of look back on that and have a dark sense of humor and kind of look back, but I don't think that's really the Newport way of looking back on times of troubles. I think we look back on it and really think about all the different ways that we showed our resilience and we showed our character. And there were a lot of moments during that year where a lot of people stepped up and did amazing things. So when I became mayor in December of 2023, I actually gave a key to the city to Mario Morovic. And I know Mario's a friend of a lot of you. That picture is a weird picture. That picture is a picture of us standing next to a bunch of toilet paper. And the reason was, remember when you couldn't get toilet paper during 2020? Yeah. So we knew early on that because of our friendship actually with Hoag Hospital, we knew early on what COVID was and who it was going to affect and how we were going to be able to react very quickly to it. And one of the things that we were really benefited by having Hoag in our community, they actually had a virologist whose specialty was COVID. I don't know how many of you knew that, but it was pretty amazing. So they partnered up with our fire department really quickly, went into all of our skilled nursing facilities, senior living facilities, and talked to them about what COVID was, because we knew very early this was going to affect seniors a lot more than anyone else. So we weren't doing what some other states were doing, where they were sending COVID positive patients back into these facilities. We were making sure they understood how to handle them, prevent outbreaks, but if there was one, how to handle it. And because of that, we actually ended up having one of the absolute lowest mortality rates in the county out of 34 cities, which is amazing considering that we're actually one of the older communities here in Orange County. So the partnership with Hoag was a big deal. So the other thing that happened during that year, so about a month after I gave this speech, the world shut down, California shut down. And folks like Mario, whose restaurants and bars were shut down, he had no idea if they would open back up. But he still had access to his vendors, including folks who had thousands of rolls of toilet paper. And what he and I did was I bought some of those from him and we distributed them to low-income seniors because we knew darn well that the low-income seniors really weren't the ones that were going to be able to go out and go find the toilet paper. So I gave a key to the city to Mario to thank him for everything that he had been doing. And then, some of the other things, we were the community that made sure the junior guard program happened. Once we did that, a lot of cities started bringing theirs back as well. We ended up having over 1,000 kids participate in the junior guard program that year, which was pretty great because we kind of thought we'd have some interest. Turns out parents really wanted their kids out of the house. And then one of the other things that we did during that year was when people weren't driving as much, we started tearing the roads up because you know how hard it is for us to tear up roads and take care of the infrastructure underneath. So again, it's one of those things where you look back and you just say, okay, we stood up and we understood, it was a really difficult time, but how do we handle it? And we handled it with character and resilience, which says a lot about our community. And one of the other things it says about our community, I think we all remember during 2020, we had a lot of police protests going on around the country. And there are some communities that really needed to reconcile their relationships with their police departments. We need to expect really, really high standards from our police because we give them so much power. But the point is, when you have a police department that really steps up and does what you expect them to do and reaches those really high standards, we need to make sure that we're thanking them. So during 2020, when we were having protests, we actually had 5 in a day in Newport Beach. We never actually had a police protest in the history of our city, as far as I know. We had 5 in a day. And we had a lot of people walking by our police who were actually making sure they weren't getting hit by cars, saying, we're not protesting you, we're protesting the bad ones. And I always appreciated that. But what I really appreciated was this. So we had a resident in Newport Beach who went to his next door neighbor, who was the school board president at the time, and said, look, I want to run a half-page ad in the Daily Pilot that just says, to our Newport Beach Police Department, we love and support you. Could you call Will and find out if he could get some people to sign on to that message? And when I heard that, I said, yeah, you're gonna have to stop me. And they did, they stopped me. So this was the half-page ad. It was amazing. It got run, and we heard one complaint over and over again. What was the complaint?
They didn't get the name on.
Their name wasn't there. That was the only complaint. The only complaint we got was, my name wasn't there. So the guy who paid for that half-page ad paid for a full-page ad, and I think we doubled or tripled the number of names. This half-page ad and the full-page ad were in our police briefing room for years afterward. And I can tell you right now, because I've thought a lot about it in my 8 years on council, our role on council with our police department is to recruit the best, train them really, really well, and retain the best ones. Because if you do that, what happened in Minneapolis would never happen. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about those things. Now, as a community, you are really well served by having a great police department. And you can really help with that first one and the third one. You can really help us recruit, and you can really help us retain by things like this, by thanking them when they hit those high standards. You should expect those high standards, but when they hit them, please thank them. Because your community will be a safer place. I can tell you, we have been able to recruit over lateral officers from a lot of different agencies because those agencies were not supporting their officers the same way Newport Beach does, and the communities weren't supporting them as much either. And so it goes a long way. So like next time you see them, thank them. If you think about it, it's worth dropping off some coffee gift cards here and there. It's just a good idea to help us recruit and retain great officers. So one other thing, and I'm going to move this up a little bit in my presentation. This year we're celebrating helpers. So in my introduction, it was mentioned that I called 2020 the year of the volunteer. 2020 did not go the way I expected. And so we didn't get to bring in a lot of volunteers. We weren't able to celebrate people quite the same way. But the good news is the last 3 years, we've really been able to think a lot more about what it means to be a helper. And what I mean by that is, I was actually reading a biography of Mr. Rogers last year. I read a lot of books, and I read a lot of biographies. And one of the things that he was asked is, okay, so you're positive all the time. How do you deal with the hard stuff? Life's hard. And he said, when I was growing up, my mom used to, we would watch the news, and my mom would say to us, when you see hard things, look for the helpers. Look for the people running to help. And the great thing about Newport Beach is we have a lot of helpers. And the nice thing is most people actually don't look for the helpers. They just do it themselves. And so last year, we actually lost an enormous helper in Newport Beach named Jean Watt. She did more for conservation in this community than I think anyone else. And so I want to make sure I'm highlighting our appreciation. And then this is just a sampling of the folks that we've been able to really, we've seen step up over the last few years. And on Thursday night, I was actually able to honor the Ben Carlson Foundation. So July 6, 2024 is going to be 10 years since losing Ben. And so for those of you who don't know who Ben is, Ben Carlson was a lifeguard who went out in the surf, really high surf, and saved someone's life, but in that moment lost his. And so in the really hard moments, his family and his close friends got together, and they created the Ben Carlson Memorial and Scholarship Foundation. And they've done some amazing things. They've raised over $250,000 towards scholarships for lifeguards. They have stepped up in really amazing ways where they've actually expanded it now, where they're going to other countries and bringing in the techniques of, let me back up. we take for granted sometimes how amazing it is to live in the United States, and all the work that goes into keeping us safe on the public safety side. There are a lot of communities that their lifeguards just don't have that same training. They don't have the same equipment. So the Ben Carlson Foundation has been going in to other countries and actually bringing that equipment and bringing that training to them. And there are literally people alive today because of what the Ben Carlson Foundation has done. And so we were able to bring his family and the board members for the foundation up onto the stage. You know, just an FYI, I bought a table this year and I had them sitting at it, and it never crossed their minds that I was about to pull them up on stage. So I'm just going to tell you, if I ever invite you to an event, you might want to say no. But anyway, it was it was awfully nice. So one of the things we're doing this year is we're recognizing helpers. So every one of my council members has been asked to bring in some folks. We've been doing it at every council meeting so far. And what's really fun is I knew Decca was coming today, and so gosh, did I lose Amy already? Yeah, I did. So I'll tell you what. I'm going to pick one person at random. You come on up. Yep, come on up. So Decca comes to these things, and I'm really excited about it because they've really been doing some amazing work. And I'm also really I actually moved the slide up so I could grab Amy, but I know she had a speech to give. So I'm going to be recognizing Decca from Newport Harbor High School for all of the work that they've been doing. And if you wouldn't mind bringing this back to Ms. Burke, that would be amazing. So you're going to take a picture with me.
So bravo.
Shoot, I didn't even invite her to my table. Sorry about that. All right, so let's talk about the state of the city. So a few quick notes. First off, you can see it. This is our city leadership. So I know we've got our city manager, Grace Leong, here. Thanks for being here, Grace. We have city clerk, Leilani Brown, and city attorney, Aaron Harp. They're really in charge of making sure that all of our departments are working together. We are so fortunate to have them. This is a remarkably well-functioning city. This is a great year I really enjoy being mayor this year, and I really enjoy giving the state of the city this year because things are going pretty darn well. And in large part, that's because we have some people at the top of our leadership who are just professionals who make sure the trains are running on time. And so they get to oversee our departments. So speaking of our departments, let's start with our Newport Beach Police Department. So this one's led by our new police chief, Joe Cartwright. They have done some pretty extraordinary things in the last year from a law enforcement standpoint. So first off, this is one that I don't think people think about very often. When you pick up your phone and call 911, you expect a response very quickly. The gold standard in California is 90% of 911 calls are answered within 15 seconds. In Newport Beach, 99.85% of 911 calls were answered within 15 seconds last year. So that's just exceeding the gold standard. There are a lot of communities in this state right now that are not properly funding their police departments. Unfortunately, one of the biggest examples is Oakland. And so last year, during August of last year, 911 calls were answered within 15 seconds in Oakland, 37% of the time. So I point that out because when your city council is not properly funding and paying attention to public safety, bad things happen. Here in Newport, good things are happening, and I'm really, really proud of our dispatchers because frankly, our dispatchers are the personification of unnoticed excellence, and so I've always appreciated them. And then I'm going to just do that so I don't have to keep turning around. Last year, we saw an increase in DUI arrests by 23%, a decrease in DUI-related traffic collisions by 21%, and then this one's great. Our detectives right now are seeing a case clearance rate twice the average of our Southern California agencies. So our police department is doing some amazing things. And then we're actually planning on trying to increase their effectiveness. So over the last year, we have had technology integration. So now they all have body-worn cameras. That's been integrated with their in-car video, tasers, and interview room recording systems. We also have a new city council subcommittee that's focused in on technology. So one of the things that we're probably going to be doing this year is adopting what some of the cities around us have done, where we work through license plate readers around at city entrances and exits. That's mostly because our biggest crime problem right now has been increased burglaries. Those increased burglaries have come largely from crews coming out of South American areas, although that's cut down just a little bit because some of the visa program has been modified. But then we've also seen crews coming out of Los Angeles County, partially because their district attorney is not our district attorney. So interestingly enough, what we've seen is these crews will come down, hit a bunch of the cities up and down the coastal Orange County, run back up to LA thinking that for some reason there's no extradition from LA. I don't know why they think that, but our police department actually has been pretty good about going back up there, bringing them back to Orange County. So our DA will prosecute. And so when we see those crews, when we see our department solving these crimes at twice the rate, that actually means we're helping other communities around us. And I've actually been thanked by council members in other cities. So I'm gonna do the same thing for our fire department. So our fire department. The very first one, the recent designation as a Class 1 fire department, I'm gonna say, like, that bullet point sounds super boring, and I recognize that, but it's really, really meaningful. So what happened last year, or the last 2 years, it's a 2-year review process for our Newport Beach Fire Department to be designated as a Class 1 fire department. So for perspective, there are 38,195 fire departments in our nation. Our fire department is one of only 498 to have that designation, which literally means that your Newport Beach Fire Department is in the top 1% in the entire country in its ability to respond to your emergencies and fire emergencies as well. And then we also this past year approved, and then in February of this year implemented a new paramedic rescue ambulance, which is kind of the first upgrade in that area since 1994. And then we also are going to be celebrating the 40th year anniversary of our junior lifeguard program this year, which is going to be really exciting. I'm going to talk about the building in just a second. But last year, the city of Newport Beach established the Newport Beach Junior Lifeguard Scholarship Program, which helped a dozen youth experience the JG program. So I just want to say real quickly, thank you so much to everyone who donated to that. That actually is something that the Ben Carlson Foundation is now pivoting toward expanding into as well, with the JG program, with the JG Foundation essentially kind of rolling itself up because it was able to get the building, which again I'm going to talk about in just a second. The Ben Carlson Foundation is going to absorb a lot of that, so we're really excited about that partnership. Of course, the most important thing about our city is our people, and so our HR department is led by Barbara Salvini. This past year, they successfully recruited to fully staff that new ambulance, which required hiring 10 new firefighter paramedics. This was in addition to hiring 19 officers this past year. I mentioned earlier about laterals. We actually hired 9 laterals and 10 recruits. And then they also helped the hiring of our new police chief, Joe Cartwright, as well as provided the retention incentive for the city's long-term employees. On the public works side, we've got some really cool stuff coming. So this department's led by Dave Webb. The Newport Beach Junior Lifeguard Foundation, or the building right down there, we've got a tentative date of April 20th for ribbon cutting. I suspect we're going to have a lot of people at that one. We also have the San Diego Creek Trash Interceptor that's scheduled to be complete later this summer. This one's great. This one's going to be a sustainably powered system to collect floating trash before it enters the Upper Newport Bay Nature Reserve, the harbor, and the beaches. We're really excited for this one. The Superior Bridge, which is the bottom left right over there, that one will also be opening up this summer. That arch alone, by the way, that you see down there, 253,000 pounds of reinforced steel and about 60 truckloads of concrete. That one's going to be really important because it'll essentially help us remove out the crosswalk there. And because a lot of our youth sports don't want to use that field because there's no good connection except going across the busy intersection, that'll now open up that field to youth sports in ways that have been anticipated years ago in councils before me. And then last but not least, we have the discussion about the Peninsula Fire Station Library. Very similar to the Corona Del Mar concept, where we're going to be taking a fire station library and basically combining them together. We're going to be doing the same thing for the fire station library. This is just one of the renderings for the discussion. We haven't approved it yet, but at some point when we approve the design, we expect that we'll go out to bid later this year and have a new building next year, which will be, I'm excited for that one. Community Development Department. So that top right up there that says total active permits, I actually took that from the website last week. They're very busy over at community development. And none of the projects that I just referenced and none of the projects that are going on in our city happen without a really professional staff led by our assistant city manager and CDE director, Simone Jurgis. So the city's been investing significantly in technology. We're actually looking right now at expanding the online capabilities to allow for digital submittals of commercial and multifamily projects. I see a few of you in this room that will be very excited about that idea. And then we're also looking at a very ever-changing environment with the state laws. And so having a really good professional, competent staff matters a lot at this moment, especially in your CDD. And I'm going to be talking just a little bit about the general plan later. But I just want to thank Simone and his team for all of the work that they've done to get us to a compliant housing element. And then to pay for all of this excellence, you've got to have a really good finance department, which in our department is led by Jason Alamam. This year's going to be my 6th and final year as the chair of the city's finance committee. I've seen the ups, and we're in an up right now. I've seen the downs. 2020 was rough, but throughout it all, we've had a very stable approach to our finance department. And because the charter requires our city manager to be the one that proposes budgets, I should also mention my appreciation for Grace as well. And all of this work that they've been doing has been recognized repeatedly. So last year we were again awarded the AAA rating by Fitch, which is the highest rating possible. And when you look out and you realize that our state is currently facing a $73 billion deficit, you realize that year over year our city has run a balanced budget, and I think we should be proud of that. And then on our harbor department, so our harbor is clearly the crown jewel of our city. There's no question about that. And so our harbor is overseen by our harbor department, run by Harbor Master Paul Blank. I actually asked Paul what he's most proud of, and he actually mentioned the mission of the harbor department, which is pretty simple. It's to keep Newport Harbor clean, safe, and well enjoyed. Of course, we know how hard it is to do a simple message like that. And so some of the, and they're the newest department in our city. They've had improvements to technology that we're using to support operations, water quality sensing data pods, new public docks. They are indeed firing on all cylinders, which is pretty amazing to see for a department that is relatively new. And then, of course, the building we're in right now is our Newport Beach Public Library, led by our Director of Library Services, Melissa Hartson. Some of you probably know this, but this is actually the 2nd most visited landmark in our city, behind only beaches. And so the amazing thing, I actually asked her, how many items did we check out last year? 1.2 million items came out of the Newport Beach Public Library last year. It's pretty amazing, and they've also seen a lot of growth in people actually attending programs. So last year, our library's after-school programs more than doubled. The summer reading program participation saw a 21% increase, and program attendance far exceeded the 2022 totals with a 139% increase. This is a really well-used public library system, and we're really proud of it. Also, following a 3-year hiatus, the Cultural Arts Division saw the return of the 56th Annual Newport Beach Arts Exhibition. And then something for folks, if you don't know this already, you can check out a lot more than books. You'll notice I said 1.2 million items. In fact, you can actually check out the California State Parks Pass. If you're ever going to a state park, instead of paying for it, you come check it out. We actually now have over 100 here that you can check out. And interestingly enough, we are the second, we're ranked 2nd in the state for number of checkouts per pass. So we move around here in Newport. And actually, speaking of keeping our community active, so our Rec and Senior Services Department is led by Sean Levin. They've got a huge year coming up. Probably the one that people are most anticipating. We actually are going to be adding 6 new pickleball courts very soon up near the Newport Coast Community Center. I was told already that people are lining up to get a court reservation, so that'll be interesting. We also have the Arroyo Park Turf Project, which will wrap up this spring. That'll increase the field by about 30% for more recreation opportunities. I'm also really excited. So we've got, over at San Miguel Park, we are now going to be designing and then next year building a fully inclusive park for kids with all different abilities. And that makes a big difference. We've been making a more concerted effort to make sure that all kids can use our parks starting about 5 or 6 years ago. And having a fully inclusive park over at San Miguel is going to be a big deal. And then real quick, shameless plug, March 23rd, the mayor's egg roll. I'm gonna tell you real quick. Of all the things that got canceled in 2020, that was the one I was the most bummed about. And the reason I was most bummed about that one is my kids are a little old now to be doing the egg roll 4 years later. But I'm still gonna make them do it. And I told my son it's given me 4 more years to beat him. So we'll have some fun. But anyway, March 23rd, mayor's egg roll. And then on the utilities side, so we've got a utilities department led by Mark Vukojevic. These are the folks that really do make sure that everything that you expect to be done by a city are being done, and you're never even thinking about them. Again, coming back to that concept of unnoticed excellence, that's what you're seeing throughout this entire slide. So one of the things that we're really excited about, we had a multi-year digital water meter conversion that's now fully complete. It actually helps us with leak detection. And interestingly enough, we're catching hundreds of private leaks every month. And so we're going to be decreasing the leaks, which will increase conservation and hopefully decrease bills as well. And also to ensure resilience, we're going to be securing a new water well site. Because frankly, when you turn your tap on, you expect clean water in abundance. And that is exactly what our utilities department's been able to provide. Now, I want to touch on a couple broader topics, and then we'll conclude and move into Q&A. So, first one, general plan. So, I look out in the audience, I see a lot of you who have been involved in this process, but for those of you who have not, real quickly, the state is mandating millions of homes be built across the state. They do it through regional agencies. Locally, we have the Southern California Association of Governments, which is called SCAG, and it's an enormous organization because it covers LA, Orange County, Riverside, San Bernardino, Ventura, and I think I'm missing 1 or 2, but it's an enormous agency. So when they dictate to all of those agencies, the cities and the counties, how many housing units they have to build, or at least plan for over the next 8 years, it was a big deal when it first came out. And in fact, this is actually the same slide that I used back in 2020 when I was talking about this exact same issue, because I thought during 2020, the hardest thing I was going to face was finding a way to get a compliant housing element. It turned out that was not the hardest thing I faced during 2020, but I've got my fingers crossed. The hardest thing we're going to face this year is finding a compliant land use element. So that's why I put this slide up. So to get to the land use element, here's where we go. When the state mandated Newport Beach have 4,845 new housing units in an 8-year period, that's a 12% increase on top of what we've already built over the last 120 years. So in Newport Beach, we have around 45,000 housing units. So adding 4,845 is going to be a big lift. Add on the fact that most of those need to be in specific affordability levels, it's going to be a challenge. So one of the things that we worked for is to find a way to make sure we had a compliant housing element that would be acceptable to the state. Not having a compliant housing element has real big downsides. As the city of Beverly Hills just recently found out late last year when a judge issued a judgment telling them that they would no longer be able to issue permits of any kind, including commercial, unless it added residential housing. Now that's on appeal, so Beverly Hills is still kind of holding out hope. But you're starting to see more lawsuits being filed. There was a lawsuit filed recently against the city of Orange. So not having a compliant housing element is a big deal. Your city has one, and we're only one of about half of the Orange County cities that have one right now. But in order to get to a compliant land use element, so land use is basically, we'll just say for sake of simplicity, it's how to implement your housing element, how to zone for it. In our land use element of our general plan, we have basically 3 different options. One of them is we can just roll over and take whatever the state tells us we have to. That's not exactly the Newport Beach's approach, and I don't anticipate it to be there too. The other is we can just fight like hell and just stop and try to stop anything the state tries to make us do. That puts our residents and businesses at risk. It's also not really something Newport Beach has ever done. The third option is really just take a measured, nuanced, intelligent approach. That's the approach we took to get a compliant housing element. That's the approach we're taking to get a compliant land use element. Now, the difference between the housing element and the land use element, housing element goes to the state for ratification. Land use element, because of something in our charter called the Green Light Amendment, needs to go to the voters. So in November of this year, we anticipate sending an updated land use element to voters, asking them whether they're willing to approve, like I said, that third approach that we've taken. It's a big deal because what we're going to see as part of this, we're going to, like I said, if we don't have that compliant land use element, it jeopardizes our housing element and then puts us in the same spot that a lot of other cities are facing right now, where things like builder's remedy, where a builder can come in and just propose something, it becomes problematic. So we're going to be asking our voters, do you want to approve that? It's not a small ask. This is not exactly something that we would be doing as a normal course of our city business. But because of the situation we find ourselves in with the state mandates and what the effects are, we're going to be putting that to the voters and asking them what their thoughts are. And since you woke up this morning, I'm going to tell you kind of how the schedule will look at. So we've already put out our environmental impact review. So we've already put the EIR notice out. So that's ongoing right now. There's about a 45-day process. Our planning commission will discuss the approval of the recommended update somewhere around April 18th. We'll need to submit to the Airport Land Use Commission for consistency determination around April 30th. If they determine it to be inconsistent, which they will, then we'll need to adopt a resolution of notice to intent to override, which will take 45 days. That would put us around July 23rd council meeting to hold a public hearing, which we need to have because the last day for the ballot measures to be put on is August 9th, and then we have an election on November 5th. So it's going to be important that we provide people a lot of information, explain to them what the pros are, what the cons are, and let people decide. A lot of you here will be playing a role in having those discussions with your neighbors, and so we want to make sure we're providing you as much information as possible, because quite frankly, one of the biggest concerns we have is if this fails, the state will come in and try to get green light. And I think that's a bad thing. And so we're going to be working really hard to make sure that we're saving green light for future generations as well. And then our ferry. So we've got to save the ferry. It's not even a close call. So what's happened is as part of the legislation moving us toward a more green environment, there were a lot of regulations being put out. One of them being the California Air Resources Board put out so many regulations that buried within it talked about short form ferries, and our ferry, the Balboa Island ferry, is considered kind of short. It's short something. So I'm going to say short form. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the term, but it's a short haul ferry. Anyway, they need to be fully electrified by 2025. There are a couple problems with that. One, there's no infrastructure to do that, and two, we're not really confident the technology exists to do it either. And so I will also say, this one's a tough one to stomach because the idea is we want to clean our air up by removing a ferry that literally takes away hundreds of thousands of miles of cars being driven every year. That does not make any sense. And I will say, I think this is the most backward policy I've seen come out of Sacramento in the last 8 years, and coming from me, that's saying a lot. But here's the good news. There's a bipartisan coalition of people who have come together and say, yeah, this doesn't make sense. So our local assembly member, Diane Dixon, has introduced Assembly Bill 3153. She's already got bipartisan support as a sponsor on this one. Last week, I signed a letter on behalf of the City Council supporting AB 3153. I know that we're going to be working really hard on kind of a public awareness campaign on this one. And we're also going to be asking a lot of other legislators to sign on. What AB 3153 would do is provide the ferry up to 15 more years until the technology is feasible to actually move toward electrification. So we're going to be doing a lot. That is not the only thing we're relying on to try to save our ferry, but it is certainly one that I fully support, and I appreciate our local assembly member bringing up. So, there you go. Coming back to that idea of unnoticed excellence. So I was trying to think of what is noticed excellence, and noticed excellence is usually when someone's talents, skills, and resources are in headlines describing actions performed above expectations. But unnoticed excellence aspires to use whatever talents God has given you, whatever skills you've honed and practiced, and whatever resources you've been given or earned to do something extraordinary, to help someone else. And so today we all have the chance to be helpers, today, tomorrow, and every day afterward. I'm really pleased to present to you the state of the city, which is extraordinarily strong. And may God bless you and the city of Newport Beach, and now go out and be helpers. Thank you.
I have 3 questions. Okay. If you need to leave, please do, but
Yeah, so Will, thank you so much for the overview. Great to hear this free. You couldn't make the other event. So the city is in great hands. I would just add two categories that we need to keep on our radar. One is to continue to push back against John Wayne Airport and what it is that they're doing to negatively impact our community with departures. We want those aircraft to be higher, slower, and thus quieter. The second is the category of the oil derricks, 1960s technology. COVID didn't shut down our harbor, but a leaking oil derrick did, and that was a small leak at that point. And Newport had to put buoys across the channel entrance for 5 days. So we need to continue to raise that too. And those oil derricks only produce a small amount of oil in the inventory, so they need to be decommissioned. Those are the two things I would add. Thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Great, thanks, Dennis.
Question?
Thank you so much. My name is Allie from Trellis. What is the greatest need of the people of Newport Beach?
Greatest need of the people. Greatest need of the people is to be good neighbors. I mean, one of the things that we've seen, and this is not a Newport specific issue, but we live so much of our life online that people have forgotten what their neighbors' names are, and when someone moves in the neighborhood, they forget to go bring them cookies or something along those lines. I know that sounds small, but what I was talking about during 2020, that matters. People knowing each other and being able to go check in on each other really mattered. One of my favorite stories actually from 2020. Before 2020, we had a group of women over at the Friends of Oasis who would call in homebound seniors and just check in on them. And then we expanded that program because the Oasis Senior Center is a real great, it's a blessing. I mean, it's such an amazing place. It's a place where our senior community had a community, right? And that was one of the first things we had to shut down in 2020. So we had a lot of people who had lost their sense of community really quickly overnight. So we started having people call. We expanded that. So a lot of the Oasis Senior Center staff were calling. We had volunteers calling. I actually called, and it was really funny because one of my first calls was to a lady, and I said, "Hi, I'm Mayor Will O'Neill." She said, "Mayor who?" I said, "Yeah, fair enough." So, and it's a good reality of humility. But the truth is, like this is a position that should demand humility anyway. So. But I think that's probably the number one thing. We need to make sure we're regrouping our community and just be that glue in your neighborhood. That matters a lot, especially neighborhood watch programs. Neighborhood watch programs bring down crime in your neighborhood like you wouldn't believe. It allows for our police department to spend time doing other things. So that's a great one. All right, last one. Man, I answered everything. Awesome. All right. Well, again, I really appreciate you. Thanks for taking your morning out and listening to the State of the City. The fact that you're even interested means that you have the opportunity to do a little bit more. And so I would just recommend spending time thinking about ways to get more involved in the community, whether that's boards, commissions, committees through the city, whether that's nonprofits, whether it's through churches and synagogues. There are lots of different ways to be involved in your city and make it a better place, because it's already a pretty amazing. It's amazing. Our baseline is very high, but we can always be higher thanks to you. So I just want to say thank you again for being here this morning.
So just quickly, I know you're all anxious to leave, a couple announcements. I do want to thank Will for coming. The city council members and the mayors, some of our biggest helpers in the community. So how about a round of applause for great city government? And can you stick around a little bit in case anybody has any questions afterwards? We'll be here to answer them. I do want to just quickly go through a couple of things that we'll be doing in the next week or two. So if you're still interested in coming out and enjoying what the Chamber has to offer, please do. Our Navigate Young Professional group is going to be meeting on March 19th. We're going to be at ACI Jet, which is the private jet terminal over at the John Wayne Airport. It's a great facility, and we're going to get some tours of the hangars and stuff. I think we already have like 100 people signed up for that event. So if you're a young professional and you're interested in going, get on the list quick, because I think we're going to shut that one down. Our networking luncheon is going to be at the Bahia Corinthian Yacht Club this month. That's on March 20th. And then our Sunset Mixer, I already, I think, thanked Evan for the great mixer we had there. Well, we're gonna have another great mixer at the Lot Theater on March 28th from 5:30 to 7:30. If you're a member of the chamber, you get in free. If you call us and you want to be a guest at the event, you'll get it free. Otherwise, you pay $35 at the door. So, and we expect probably well over 100 people to show up for that. We do have two community events coming up. One is one of our biggest, but first off will be our April 2nd 61st annual Scholarship Awards dinner to honor the top 35 students from Harbor, Corona del Mar, and Seychelles schools. Maybe one of these DECA students will be one of our honorees that day. But anyway, it's going to be at Lido House Hotel. If you're interested, you can actually, for all these events, go on our website at newportbeach.com and you can get information. And as Will mentioned when he was talking about the police department and how we like to show the love to our police officers, and that helps with retention and recruiting, we also like to show the love to the police department. We're going to be having our 51st annual, so we've been doing it for over 51 years and probably years before that, but they formalized it, 51st annual Police Appreciation Luncheon this year. Usually a breakfast, but it's going to be a luncheon, April 26th. Honestly, we just took the registration down because we think we might be close to being sold out, and we're still almost 2 months from the event. But if you're interested, you want to go, call the office, and we'll put you on the list. I'm pretty sure tickets are going to free up. We just don't want to run out of tickets for the actual people we're honoring, the police department and their families. So we'll see how many of them are coming, and we'll know how many we have left. Thank you all for coming. Have a great week, and we'll see you at our next event.